Hey guys, Ashlane here, coming at you today, updating you on my quest to build the perfect deck. Now, obviously, I know that the perfect deck, per se, doesn't really exist, but basically what this series is my quest in the evolution of finding a deck that I'm really comfortable with and that can win really consistently. So what I do is, I'll bring you an episode. This is actually the second episode with this deck, but I change a card here or there after playing about a dozen matches if I feel the need to do so, and recently I have changed a card in this deck. This is the deck I'm currently using. I'm going to show you 4 replays in today's episode, and you can see here I have the Baby Dragon now added to the deck, and I have the Goblin added to the deck. Those are 2 cards that I didn't play in this deck earlier, and I'm finding them really successful. Other than that, we have the Minion Horde, which is obviously a great counter card to those tankier, P.E.K.K.A. or Golem cards that are so popular, and then we have the arrows, of course. And I was playing Spear Goblin, but then I switched it with Goblins, and I'm going to tell you why after we review one of my losses. But first, let's review one of my wins and kind of figure out how this deck works and what makes it so successful and why I love this deck. So we start off this match just by playing the Musketeer card. I usually lead off with either the Musketeer or the Elixir Pump, depending on what I have. And then I kind of play from there. By the time the Musketeer makes it to the halfway mark on the board, then I kind of have a good feel for at least a few cards that the opponent might have. So I'll counter a Hog. Well, there's plenty of things to counter a Hog with this deck, and you can counter a Hog with a Prince. You can counter the Hog with Minion Horde. With Goblins are way better than Spear Goblins to counter a Hog, and of course you also have the Dark Prince in the deck, so there's a lot of counters in this deck, and the Baby Dragon is really the secret key to this deck. I mean, obviously all the cards are important, of course, but the Baby Dragon is awesome for mounting a really strong offensive. So I made a little bit misplay here, and I gave up my left tower. So what I'm going to do is drop the Dark Prince, and then I'm going to have a little counter offensive of my own. So my defense turns into an offense here as I'm able to get that Dark Prince almost all the way to the tower. He drops a Ice Wizard at the very last second here. But look at this Baby Dragon. This is going to be absolutely key. The Baby Dragon, think of the Baby Dragon not only as just a splash damage air unit, but it's also very tanky. It actually has a lot of hit points, a lot more hit points than people think. So what you do is you want the towers, the defensive towers, or the ones you're going against, you want them to target the dragon, not target the Dark Prince or the Prince or any other card you have. I mean, in this deck, the Baby Dragon is your tank. So think of it as you're using it as a giant almost. Like really, think of the Baby Dragon as a giant. Play it in that kind of fashion when you're playing this deck, and I think you'll have a lot of success with it. So the Dark Knight, again, I snuck him in there, and guys already, I'm sure you're familiar with the mechanics behind the Dark Knight, right? It's that you can take one hit no matter how much damage it is, and it will live, and then it will start over with just a little bit, well, a lot less health. But that is the benefit, and obviously it's 1 elixir less than the actual Prince card. So consider using the Dark Prince. You can see here now I have this great thing going in the right lane. All my troops are getting to the King Tower. I 3-crown them fairly easily, and it was all using that one combination that I talked about, using the Baby Dragon as my tank, and then getting the Prince and the Dark Prince behind that Baby Dragon, or a couple Musketeers like you saw there. Let's go ahead and go to the next replay here. Was it my loss or another victory? Okay, another victory. You can see I've won 3 out of the last 4, but I'm actually feeling a lot more confident now that I swapped in the Goblins for the Spear Goblins. I'll talk about why I did that again when we review the loss, which is going to be up next. But we'll go ahead and watch these in double time to speed things up a little bit. So I'm starting, if I can, I'll start every match off with an Elixir Pump, but I do want to wait till my Elixir goes to 10 before I do so. I don't want to be left with no Elixir left to defend if I have to on a pinch. So this defender, this guy I'm playing against, he actually has some defensive units. He has the Cannon, the Expo, the Inferno Tower. So I'm actually happy I get to share this replay because it shows how this deck can be effective against all sorts of different kinds of decks. So I use my Minion Horde there against the Inferno Tower. That works out really well because he actually blows a Fireball against my Minion Horde, and my Prince was able to get a lot of damage off that left tower. Now, you guys probably already know this as well, but the Dark Prince actually does splash damage. He does a little bit of AoE damage, so he's actually really good against Barbarians. So this guy, he keeps saying wow. I think he might know the channel. So hello there, Kill, if you're watching. So let's go ahead and see what I do here. We'll speed things up a little bit. You can see the dragon is just such a lethal combination with any of these cards. Again, the dragon's leading the way, and again, I get the musketeer behind that dragon, and the musketeer herself takes down that tower. So now I have the 1 tower lead. At this point, I can just keep building elixir pumps. When you have the 1 tower lead with this deck, you can afford to still be patient on offense. You don't have to, you have enough counters in this deck that you can play really solid defense. Keep building the elixir pumps when you get them available, and other than that, you can just keep that elixir as high as possible. You have the arrows to counter any sort of a swarm attack like the minion horde there, and then this Expo is a little bit dangerous here. It is locked onto my right tower, but you can see I have these tankier troops that can really lock onto that Expo, and eventually the minion horde takes them down. So it's just a very versatile deck. You don't have to necessarily 3-crown every time. I'm sorry, killy, not kill, but good game there. So let's go ahead and go to the loss now, and we'll talk about where I think there was a big weakness in the deck you've been seeing so far and why I made that swap. So against this deck here, he has the Ice Wizard, and he has a pretty similar deck in some fashion to me. Well, actually not too similar. He has the Prince, and he has the Hog instead of the Dark Prince, and he's playing the P.E.K.K.A. a lot. You'll see he plays the P.E.K.K.A. maybe 5 or 6 times against me in this match, and that's one of the reasons I felt the deck was pretty weak. Goblins do really, really well against tankier units. They do really well against giants. They do really well against golems. They do really well against giant skeletons and against P.E.K.K.A.s. That's because they can distract them very well. You can place them in the middle of the map and get them away from your tower lane. And also the goblins, they do really well against hogs as well, and against princes. So look at that hog. He got right to my tower there on the left tower. He also took down my right tower. And I had the Spirit Goblins, and they don't do much damage. Goblins do a lot of damage. Spirit Goblins, not so much. So I really needed those DPS, that high DPS unit for the ground in this deck, and that's what I was missing. Even the Prince, when he's not on charge, he doesn't do a heck of a lot of damage. So I needed a small unit to play other than like you can see, a minion horde easily taken out by arrows. Usually enemies don't want to waste their arrows on just a few goblins, but goblins can be great at distracting. I don't really have a distracting unit in this deck right now. Low battery. Sorry about that. So I really find, you'll see in the next match, I lost this one 1-0. Good game, Warlike, for sure, and he really used the P.E.K.K.A. really well there. He played a lot of P.E.K.K.A.s against me, so I needed something that was cheap and really had much higher DPS than Spirit Goblin. I don't need the air targeting troop because I have the Minion Horde, I have the Musketeer, and I have the Baby Dragon, so I don't need a 4th one. So I think this swap is, I feel really, really good about it. Now this guy also has a P.E.K.K.A., and you'll see I can just play I can play my game against this deck without having to worry about these tankier troops. He also has the Giant, and he's going to play in just a bit. He's going to play the Giant P.E.K.K.A. combination. And it is really hard to stop, but you're going to see in a little bit how I stopped it with no problem, and it was honestly all thanks to the goblins in this deck. So that's why this series is called the evolution of finding the perfect deck, because we're making these little adjustments that you should be making no matter what deck you have. So I sneak goblins in there, and look at this. The goblins both get onto that tower. They take it down. If there were spirit goblins, that would not have happened. I'm actually really liking goblins as opposed to spirit goblins right now, especially if you play a deck that already has 2 or 3 air targeting troops. So I take down his right tower. I'm feeling pretty good about life right now. I'm going to go ahead and at this point in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to play the Elixir Pump because like I told you last match, that's what you want to do. If you can get the win, if you can get the advantage, the 1 tower advantage, what you want to do is just keep building pumps as much as you possibly can, because that's going to give you the upper hand when defending later on in the match. So now we're halfway through the match, and he plays the P.E.K.K.A. card. He has the giant card selected, so I'm ready for this. Well, I'm not ready for it. I didn't know he had the giant up until now. But then when I see this, I drop my minions, but he has his arrows ready. So now the minion horde is down. I'm dropping the baby dragon, who's doing some splash damage, but it's the goblins who are the all-stars here. The goblins single-handedly take down the giant. They do a little little bit of damage to the P.E.K.K.A, but more importantly, they distract him and hold him up, and the P.E.K.K.A was not able to even get one swing against my right tower. That is what I call a successful defense on my part there. So that's why I love having the goblins there instead of spirit goblins. Even if you're not playing this deck in particular, like I said, consider using goblins instead of spirit goblins. If you're using the spirit goblins as a defensive tool, I find the goblins actually work better 9 times out of 10. So, and obviously that 1 time out of 10 they don't work better is when you're being hit by a balloon or a baby dragon, something that you can't target. But hey, let's face it, balloons are kind of out of the meta right now. I'm not seeing any balloons being used right now, so or very rarely at least. So I don't even think you have to worry too much about having a bunch of air targeting ground troops in your deck. So now here comes the P.E.K.K.A again with a minion horde. I was able again to really mitigate the damage done by that push there. I had the Musketeer card. Musketeer does very high point damage, and just in combination with the dragon, again, using the dragon to tank here. Look at this. I would have 3-crowned him if I had maybe 2 more seconds on the clock, because you can see as soon as that witch is down, I have the Dark Prince and the Prince, 2 baby dragons, and a Musketeer all in the crown tower. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Really had a lot of fun bringing it to you. I think I did a pretty well job at updating you on my evolution of this deck and changes you can make to make your deck the perfect deck. So guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.